The sun crept over the horizon, spilling a lazy golden glow across my sprawling farmstead, painting the dew-kissed fields in hues of amber and green. It was the kind of morning that made you pause, breathe deep, and feel the earth hum beneath your boots. I stood on the weathered porch of my century-old farmhouse, cradling a chipped mug of black coffee, watching the light dance through the branches of my two oldest pecan tree giants my great-grandfather had planted with his own hands when this land was still a wild stretch of untamed prairie. They'd weathered floods, lightning strikes, and even a rogue twister that ripped the roof clean off the hay barn back in '73. Those trees were family, silent sentinels of a legacy I'd sworn to protect. But that morning, something was off. Something didn't belong. Squinting against the dawn, I spotted it, a hammock slung between those sacred pecans like a slap in the face. Not just any hammock, mind you, a garish thing, striped in clashing shades of coral and teal, swaying gently as if it had every right to be there. My grip tightened on the mug. I hadn't hung it. I hadn't approved it. And stitched into the corner, bold as brass, was a name, Lydia. My stomach churned, then ignited. Lydia Voss, the self-appointed empress of the Pine Hollow Homeowners Association, had finally gone too far. This wasn't her cul-de-sac kingdom of manicured lawns and pastel mailboxes. This was my land, my refuge, 40 acres of solitude carved out of the Texas Hill Country, untouched by her petty rules and plastic flamingos. I set the mug down hard enough to slosh coffee onto the porch boards and marched across the field, boots sinking into the soft earth. The closer I got, the worse it became. Beneath the hammock sat a wicker tray iced tea in a crystal pitcher, a stack of lemon wedges, and a neatly folded quilt, all arranged like I was supposed to play host to her delusions. A note fluttered under a glass, penned in her loopy cursive. Thought this spot could use some charm. Enjoy. El charme? This wasn't charm. This was an invasion, a flag planted on my soil by a woman who'd spent the last 2 years treating my farm like her personal playground. Lydia had moved into Pine Hollow, a tidy, little subby VY town that sprouted up a mile down the road 2 summers back. From day one, she'd acted like the countryside was her private estate. She'd stroll through my pastures in her yoga pants and oversized sun hats, while VYing like she owned the place, suggesting I spruce up my barn with fairy lights or turn my sorghum field into a community picnic spot. I'd laughed it off at first, figuring she'd tire herself out. But Lydia didn't tire. She escalated. Last spring, she'd sent me a typed letter in HOA letterhead, no less demanding I trim my cedar hedges because they obstructed the aesthetic harmony of her VYEW. My farm wasn't even in her jurisdiction. The boundary line was clear as day, marked by a rusty barbed wire fence and a row of surveyor stones older than her McMansion. Yet here she was, staking her claim with a hammock and a pitcher of tea. I didn't bother knocking when I reached her house that afternoon. Her porch was a shrine to suburban excess flamingos in formation, a welcome mat with "Bless this mess" in glittery script, and a wind chime that jangled like a nervous breakdown. She answered the door in a flowing caftan that matched the hammock stripes, her blonde bob pinned back with a tortoiseshell clip, smiling that saccharine smile that made my teeth ache. "Oh, tra VYS. You saw the hammock," she chirped, clapping her hands like I won a prize. "Isn't it DVYNE? I thought it'd really tie the space together, give it that cozy community VYB. Community VYB?" I kept my voice low, steady, though my pulse hammered in my ears. "Lydia, that's my land. Private property. You didn't ask." She blinked, then waved a dismissive hand. "Oh, don't be so territorial. Those trees practically spill in a Pine Hollow theory begging to be enjoyed. Besides, I'm hosting a little sunset soiree next Friday. It'll be a lovely feature. You won't even know we're there." I stared at her, jaw clenched so tight I could have cracked a walnut. She didn't ask. She announced, like I should be grateful for the PRIVY leg of her trespassing. I tried reason, God help me, I tried. "Lydia, my farm's not part of your HOA. It's posted. No trespassing. You can't just—" "Tra VYS, please," she interrupted, laughing like I was a child throwing a tantrum. "It's just a hammock. Relax." It wasn't just a hammock. It was a gauntlet thrown down, a middle finger to everything I held dear. As I trudged back to the farmhouse, the hammock swaying mockingly in the breeze, I knew two things. Lydia had no intention of backing off, and if I let this slide, she'd be planting a gazebo next. My farm wasn't a backdrop for her Instagram stories. It was my blood, my sweat, my history. And Lydia Voss was about to learn that some boundaries aren't negotiable. That night, I paced the creaky floorboards of the Lee VY Ing room, the hum of cicadas filtering through the open windows. My dog, rusted grizzled mutt with one ear and a knack for sniffing out trouble, watched me from his rug, head tilted like he knew a storm was brewing. I couldn't let anger cloud my judgment. Farming's a long game. You don't serve VYV it by swinging wild. You wait, you plan, you strike when the iron's hot. Lydia needed a lesson, one she'd feel in her bones. By dawn, I had it figured out. Out by the creek, where the land dipped into a shady hollow, grew a patch of the VYL's claw-nasty little VY nests with hooked barbs that'd snag your jeans and leave you cursing. Not lethal, but memorable. I spent the morning pruning them, gloved hands working slow and deliberate, we VYing the thorny tendrils into the hammock ropes. From a distance, it looked unchanged rustic even. Up close, a different story. I added a sign, too, carved into a slab of cedar. Private property trespassers beware the sting. Simple, poetic, and just vague enough to dodge legal nitpicking. For days, Lydia stayed away. I'd catch her silhouette on her porch, clipboard in hand, barking at neighbors about mailbox uniformity, but she didn't venture near the pecans. I almost thought she'd wised up. Then Friday rolled around, and there she was, prancing across my field with a gaggle of HOA minions in Tosun hats, pastel polos, the works. They cooed over the hammock, snapping photos like it was a tourist trap. Lydia, basking in their adoration, flounced over and plopped down with a dramatic sigh. The scream that followed could have woken the dead. She thrashed, the thorns biting into her caftan, her arms pinwheeling as she tumbled into the dirt. Her posse froze, then scattered like spooked quail, clutching their iced teas. Lydia staggered up, leaves in her hair, face twisted in outrage. She spotted the sign, read it aloud, sting, and whirled around, searching for a culprit. I stayed low behind the barn, biting my lip to keep from howling. She couldn't prove I'd rigged it. Nature's a wild thing, after all. She stormed off, vowing retribution, but I figured that'd be the end of it. The sheriff, a grizzled old-timer named Hank who'd known my granddad, stopped by later, chuckling as he tipped his hat. "She's madder'n a wet hen, tra VYS, but she's got no case. That's your land. She shouldn't VE been there." I nodded, relieved, thinking maybe she'd finally retreat. I was wrong. 2 days later, I caught sight of her again, this time with a full entourage HOA board members, folding chairs, and a new hammock, this one a monstrosity of woven rattan and tassels. They strung it up, added solar lanterns, a cooler of rose, and a sign, "Lydia's Oasis, all welcome." My blood boiled. She hadn't just ignored the lesson, she turned my trees into a damn theme park. That night, I dug through Granddad's old journals, leather-bound relics full of sketches and tricks from his days taming this land. Tucked between notes on irrigation and coyote traps was a gem, the slip not surprise. Harmless, but humiliating. By morning, I'd reworked the setup, loosened the ropes, rigged the lanterns to collapse, and spread a slick of muddy runoff beneath, courtesy of the pig pen. Subtle but effective. Saturday came, and Lydia's Oasis party kicked off with fanfare cars clogging the road, guests in sundresses and loafers, a playlist of acoustic covers blaring from a portable speaker. Lydia, in a floral maxi dress and a hat the size of a tractor tire, held court, gesturing grandly as she sank into the hammock. The crowd oohed. Then it happened. The ropes gave, the lanterns crashed, and Lydia pitched forward, landing face first in the muck. Silence fell, then laughter erupted, uncontrollable, contagious, cutting through the humid air. She flailed, dress ruined, Hat askew, dignity shredded. Phones came out, recording her downfall as she staggered up, glaring at my sign like it had betrayed her. The party dissolved fast. Guests fled, whispering behind their hands. Lydia screeched about lawsuits, but Hank's warning echoed in my mind. She wouldn't quit. Sure enough, Monday brought a cease and desist letter, accusing me of sabotage and emotional distress. Ilog till me sideshut. She'd overplayed her hand, and I had an ace up my sleeve. See, Lydia didn't know about the conservation easement. Granddad had locked half the farm, including those pecans, into a federal trust, protecting it as a historic site. Trespassing there wasn't just rude, it was illegal. I mailed her the paperwork, complete with maps and a polite note. Check with the county before you sue. Her response was a meltdown, tires squealing up my drive, her yelling about forgeries till her voice cracked. I leaned on the gate, calm as a summer pond, letting the signatures speak for themselves. The fallout was glorious. The HOA newsletter accidentally leaked the easement details, paired with blurry shots of Lydia's mud bath. The county fined her for disturbing protected land $5,000 and 50 hours of community SARE VYC. Word spread, and Pine Hollow turned on her. Neighbors snubbed her, her allies ghosted. A month later, a for sale sign sprouted in her yard, flamingos and all. I didn't gloat. I just sat on the porch with Rusty, watching the pecans sway free and clear. The farm settled back into its rhythm, goats bleating, wind rustling, peace restored. One evening, I found a tattered party flyer in the pig trough, chewed to bits. I grinned. Sometimes the best VY Tories are quiet ones, one with patience and a little dirt under your nails. Lydia was gone, but out here, the land always wins. Would you stand up and fight back, or accept the unreasonable pressure and control from the HOA? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this VY Deo with more people. Your small action gives us the motivation to keep bringing you more intense and engaging stories. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next VY Deo.